You're listening to this week's episode of the Vacation Rental Business in Today's World podcast. You're about to start transforming your business and life with the information found here. We interview some of the greatest and most influential minds in the vacation short-term rental industry and supporting businesses. The information found here is a combination of brain science, transformational thinking, safety and loss prevention, and vacation short-term rental knowledge and experiences, all rolled into one to help you and your business to achieve levels you never thought possible. I am glad you are here, and now please welcome your host, Eric Thibodeau.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Safer VRs podcast. I'm Eric Thibodeau, and I'm glad you're here. Today, I want to share, we're going to get back to safety today, and I just wanted to share this safety topic that we're going to go about today and just give you a little bit of background about it. So back in 2019, you probably know or heard me talk about, I work in Egypt, and I was walking back to my villa at the end of the day, listening to the Serenity podcast, and they started talking about safety. And I said, I really like topic. Of course, I'm a safety professional and vacation rental owner, manager, investor. So I'm very in tune to this. And I heard them talking about it. And I said, you know what? Hey, I can help people in the vacation rental industry about safety. So this was probably the end of 2019, maybe early 2020. And then went back home not long after that. Of course, then I was here in Egypt. For the big lockdown we had here. I was here for 13 weeks during COVID before I was able to get a flight back. And during that time, I started thinking more about safer VRs and safety in the vacation rental industry. And you probably also heard me say, I'm very spiritual Christian. And so I opened up the Bible and I read scripture every day. And as I did that on that particular day, thinking about working in the vacation rental industry, primarily in safety. Like I said, I've already been, at that time, I was 17 years of vacation rental manager, owner, and investor. And here's what the scripture was that day as I was pondering and thinking about what should I do with vacation rentals. Here we go. It's John chapter 15, verse 16. And the verse says like this: I chose you from the world and appointed you to go and bear fruit that will last. So this is how it started for me. I felt inspired at that moment. God was speaking to me to venture into this adventure that I call Safer VRs today. And I developed at the time during the lockdown a lot of content, and I created the 9 life-saving rules for vacation rentals. There's 9 of these rules. And today I'd like to share the first one with you because basically it came back to me because this scripture I read through probably, 2 days ago when I started writing this out for the weekly podcast. And the scripture popped up again and I reflected back and said, okay, I'm going to talk about 9 life-saving rules for vacation rentals. And I'm going to share the first one with you. Now, they're in no particular order when I developed them, kind of like as they popped into my head. And the first one really is, can you guess what it would be? I don't know, maybe you wouldn't, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you. So it's about bypassing safety controls, right? And so what I call a life-saving rule, these are basically in the vacation rental industry. These are rules that we need to take a look at as vacation rental owners and managers and property managers about, are we adhering to these rules? And they're not just about the property themselves, even though this one today is, but it's also about our workers and how we are, and our contractors working for us. So bypassing safety controls, this is about obtaining authorization before overriding or disabling safety controls. And we want to make sure that if we have to bypass some safety control, that we get approval, we document it, and then we remember to remove that override for that particular safety control. And so bypassing a safeguard or operation that temporarily stops a component or a system or the entire system from functioning. And here's an easy one that popped to me when I was developing this. So if you've mowed your lawn, most lawnmowers in today's world, you when you start the mower, you have to hold a latch or a handle back that basically allows you can safely start the mower. And if you let that handle go, it stops the engine or maybe even stops the blades from turning. So what that is about is that if I'm using the mower and I'm pushing and I let go of this, it won't continue to move forward. It won't run over me or somebody else, and it stops the engine. Okay. It's a great safety control. How do you bypass this? Seen people do it, right? Only thing you have to do is tape the handle in the closed position. So now it's always on. I can move away from the mower. I can stop trash. I don't have to stop and restart the mower. I can tape it, I can tie it, I can't really disconnect it because it has to be in the closed position so I can start the mower, right? So here's a safeguard that's there to protect us, and we find ways to disable it. Okay, maybe there's a valid reason why we have to do it. Let's put it back. However, in the cases that I was just mentioning to you, um, it's there to protect the individual mowing. We could apply this to other situations. So, why do you think safeguards are put in place? Safeguard the operator when they step away from the mower and disengage the blade. So, there's several different types of um, bypasses, safety controls, or overrides, as they can be called. And these safeguards are typically put in place after many serious incidents or fatalities. And here's the thing about safety and loss prevention that I really want to stress to everybody in the vacation rental industry is that we don't have to wait in our industry to have serious incident fatalities, even though we experience them on a frequent basis, perhaps. We don't need to have them in our business. We know we can look at history, and I can help provide some of this information to support you. So if we keep going here, and here's some vacation rental examples, okay? What about bypassing the garage door sensors so that the doors stop from closing? I don't want to have it to go up and down, or I want to be able to close it and then keep moving stuff in and out. Who knows why we bypass garage doors? Okay, right? If you've heard some of my talks in my podcast, I was a firefighter and EMT for over 20 years. And, I've responded where doors have fell and crushed individuals. Most of the time it's young children. We have to extricate them. And we also have to care for them for this crushing type injury, right? This is not something that's necessary. In today's world, we have these sensors. So don't bypass them. Hot water heaters. Some hot water heaters today have a physical stop so that when you're setting the temperature of the water, right? Because once you get above 140 degrees Fahrenheit, the water is scalding temperature uh, for people, and it's really susceptible to young people and to the elderly. However, I've seen these physical stops where people pull the knob off and reset it. I've seen where they file the physical stop off because they want to turn it higher so they can get more hot water faster, almost to the point where it's steaming when it's coming out of the tap. All right. To remove this is basically you're bypassing a safety control and you're putting yourself, or maybe your family members, your children at risk. Okay. Owners, vacation rental property managers, this is something for us to take a look at. What about tape or paper installed over smoke detection or flame detection? But most of the time it's smoke detection when you're cooking or smoking inside a vacation rental. So maybe you're cooking and you've overheated the grease and now you have a lot of smoke, or you're frying fish. You could be doing that outside maybe. However, whatever. So what you do is you disable the smoke detection. You put tape around it, you disconnect it. What you've done is you've bypassed the safety control, right? All right. And maybe you recognize that and it's bringing a lot of noise. No problem. Solve the problem and reconnect it. However, let's back up even further and say, why are we having to bypass the control, right? With the excess smoke inside the house without the proper ventilation, is this an activity we should be doing outside? Let's think about some of these things as we're doing them. Next one, contractor maintenance personnel bypassing safety controls or devices on electrical equipment during maintenance and they're not restored. Okay. These could be jumpers when they're doing testing. They are disconnecting switches, reconnecting switches. And so what they're doing is uh, they're doing this maintenance, and it may be necessary to diagnose what the potential problem is. But let's remember, we're doing this. We have to reinstall any safety devices like a ground fault circuit interrupter, or I've even seen it. The ground fault circuit interrupter. It's called a branch ground fault interrupter, which is on the branch circuit on your house. And my own personal house, we have in Texas, got hit by a lightning storm, and basically the branch circuit protector protected our house from fire. I think we lost our alarm system for the house, which is not a big deal. We didn't have a fire, and we had 3 lightning strikes right on our house. No fire, no electrical issue. But what if we'd have bypassed that? What if I had had an electrician there working and bypassed it and not reinstalled it? Could have been really big trouble. One more. Heaters or gas or propane equipment have permissives removed or bypassed. So what is a permissive? A permissive is it's a control that says, hey, I want to start this heater, gas or propane fuel fired source, and there's a chamber inside where the fuel is mixing with the air, and then we have a pilot light or we apply heat through a flame through a lighter that then ignites the fuel excuse me to create the heat that then gets the heater burners going. However, if we turn the gas on or the fuel or the propane and we don't light it quick enough, the gas builds up inside this ignition chamber. And there's a sensor in there that says, "Hey, um, there's too much gas in here, so I'm not going to allow the electrical system to fire or allow you to ignite this." So what you have to do is then turn it off, stop the fuel source, let it clear out, and then try again. However, if you bypass this permissive, right, it allows time for gas to build up to be vented out and not cause a flash fire explosion. If you bypass this device because you want to not save or not use a lot of time to wait for this to happen, you are putting yourself and your family and people inside this property or maybe inside the building at risk as if this gas continues to build up. And I've seen it. I've responded to incidents like this. Certainly in the industrial setting, I've seen it because it's the same concept in large furnaces and boilers. Okay. This is really critical. So these permissives are really important to allow for the fuel time. I'm sorry, time for the fuel to be removed, and so that you can get a good ignition on the second time. So bypassing safety controls. Maybe we didn't think about this in the vacation rental industry till now, and that's okay. Maybe there's other examples you can think of. You've seen the past incidents within your businesses, and I'd love to hear from them. Post them on my Facebook group, say for vacation rentals, or on LinkedIn. You can hit me there because I think this is something that we need to take a look at. So now we have some ideas of what bypassing safety control devices are. How can we safeguard, protect, and identify these hazards? So we have instructions, whether they're written or video or by demonstration on how to handle equipment such as fireplaces, propane heaters. We need to provide instructions to the guests. We should not consider that they know how to light a propane heater or how to light your fireplace in your property. Um, you have to either provide them instructions or go in person and show them how to do this. That's an example. So I would suggest conduct a survey of the property and identify some equipment that could be bypassed by guests or by owners or by contractors, maybe even members of your team. And they did it with good intention. However, they didn't restore it. And there's those where those devices are bypassed and the hazard now that you were thought was being protected or safeguarded is now present and there's no detection available. Some equipment will need annual or more frequent checks. These could be fuel-fired equipment sources, pools, hot tubs, saunas, air conditioners, heaters, hot water heaters. Hot, uh, these tankless hot water heaters are pretty good now. But all of them have these different control devices that we need to make sure that are not being bypassed, right? So take this time, review with your employees, your contractors, your owners. Okay. Guests need instructions we talked about earlier. But hey, talk to them about these potential hazards and the consequences that could be taking place if we bypass a control and don't restore it, or we bypass it and don't leave it. Or more importantly, I know in our business, we do inspections of properties before each new guest comes in. We should be looking for these things, particularly smoke detection or carbon monoxide detection that's been unplugged, removed, whatever the situation. We need to have a process that looks for approval of bypassing the safety devices so they can be returned to a safe state. Now, I know you may have some ideas you have for this. Take some time, make some notes. I'd love to hear in the Safer Vacation Rentals Facebook group about any ideas or things that you have that are coming up. One of the things that I talk about as we're getting ready to wrap up here on bypassing safety controls is this is really a system we've been talking about here. And we could go out and inspect fire extinguishers, or we could inspect smoke detection and alarms and all these things. But really, when you look at things in a process, they need to have a way to look at the process, okay? Not just the components themselves, but a process. And I call these self verification checks. This is where I'm looking at my process, me as the owner or me as the property manager, and say, here's what I developed for bypassing. I understand and use safety critical equipment procedures which apply to my property. I obtain authorization before disabling or overriding safety equipment. Now that one, it's more about the authorization. If I'm the owner, I don't need to ask, authorization for myself. However, I want to make sure that I put that safeguard that I bypassed. Maybe I disconnected the smoke detection. Whatever it is, I want to make sure it gets put back. How am I doing that? If you're a property manager, how are you making sure that your employees or your contractors are doing that? Next, I provide clear instructions for my guests on how to safely operate key pieces of equipment in or around my property. So, if you have key pieces of equipment like fuel fired furnaces or heaters or barbecue pits, propane, those type things that could be, why do we have propane heaters outside? I don't know. They create a lot of carbon monoxide and their explosion potential risk. However, if I'm going to provide them, I want to make sure my guests understand them and I provide clear instructions. And how do you do that? It's however you feel the best way is through a video, through some written instructions, or a personal demonstration based upon how critical that is for your business. So that kind of wraps up the bypassing safety controls. Maybe it's a new topic in the vacation rental industry. Maybe we didn't look at it in the same way. We see smoke detectors that are, not disconnected, and we'll say, well, we have a smoke detection problem. We do. We have a smoke detector that was there, but it didn't work as intended. Why did it not work as intended? Maybe because we disabled it. Maybe we were doing some work and we forgot to reconnect it. So bypassing safety controls is a way to look at, identify what are those key components that we have. Let's make sure we're not bypassing them, and let's inform guests and owners and our employees about how to safely operate that equipment. So I hope this was helpful for you. I appreciate you listening. This is just number one of nine life-saving rules for vacation rentals. If you want to learn more about the other 8, you can go to Safer VRs, www.safervrs.com. You can go in there. I have a whole course on this and with a lot of activities and the self-verification checklist that I mentioned. You can also join my Facebook group, Safer Vacation Rentals. I would appreciate it. And right now we're in the initial phases of a founding member launch I'm looking for 10 to 20 people to help me as a founding member for the Awakening Vacation Rental Safety group so that we can provide more safety and loss prevention information, and also some of these pieces of what I call transformational thinking that move beyond just the physical inspection and having a safety discussion. We begin to look at not only the behavior, but the thoughts and who we are and why we make some of these decisions and what our habits are around some of these. So I appreciate you joining with me today. Uh, and I hope you create a safe day. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon. Have a great day. Bye bye.
Thank you for listening to Safer VR's podcast with Eric Thibodeau. If you enjoy this, I would love you to join my Facebook group, The Safer Vacation Rentals, for more of the same. You can also join our email list at www.safervrs.com.